Hi, everyone. This is Malvina Miller Complainville. I'm here from Fortuna Admissions, and I'm joined by my colleague, Karen Hamou. Hi, Karen.
Hi, Malvina. How are
How are you?
you?
I'm good, and you?
I'm doing well.
Karen, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, and then we're going to talk about, more specifically, the MIT interview this round.
Absolutely. So I am a graduate of Columbia Business School. I came from the retail industry, went into consulting afterwards and focused on the retail industry within consulting. And all the while, MBA admissions was an extracurricular for me. So when I was at Deloitte, I was our recruiting representative. So back on campus at CBS, recruiting students to Deloitte. I also was part of an internal Fortuna group that we had at Deloitte, working with our junior colleagues and helping them apply to business school. And then as I left Deloitte, this became my career. And now I work not only on CBS, but on, across the M7 or top programs and really enjoy it. I also interviewed at MIT Sloan, so I'm quite familiar with the process internally, right? So I'm happy to chat about it today.
I also have a recruiting background, by the way. I don't know if you knew that, Karen.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, I used to recruit when I was working at L'Oreal. I would recruit MBA profiles.
There you go.
Yeah. So, Karen, can you give us a quick overview of the MIT application process?
Mm-hmm. So the MIT application process is a little bit different than a lot of the schools. And it's interesting because they've kind of pared it down throughout the years. So back in my day, we had to write many more essays. And we had 500 words for the cover letter. So this year, and over the past few years, applicants are asked to write a 300-word cover letter, submit a 60-second video introducing themselves. So there already was a nice kind of virtual component and the ability to kind of bring your story to life already. There's an org chart to show your position in your organization. And then once you're invited to interview, you're given the opportunity to write an additional essay. Last year it was about diversity and a time that you contributed to a more diverse organization. And then once you submit that, you'll be ready for your interview. The interviews are mostly behavioral questions. And so less focus on, why the MBA and why our school, and much more focus on tell us about a specific story of a time you did X or Y.
Karen,
I think so. Go ahead.
Karen, tell me this year's pandemic situation. How has it impacted the interview process for MIT?
Yeah. So what we started seeing in the extended round 3 last year is that interviews were obviously virtual. They don't want you showing up at campus. So you'll receive a dial-in, you'll connect with your interviewer online. It's actually quite similar in style to in previous years. So same kind of behavioral questions, but you're just talking through the computer screen. So
let's say
format.
The format is different, but how should an interview prepare for those types of interviews?
Great question. So not just for MIT Sloan, for all schools, I always advise my clients to check your technology beforehand. So usually we'll do a practice together, either the day before or even that day, just to make sure everything is working properly. If it's not working properly, I always recommend sending a quick note to the admissions committee saying, hey, having this issue, here's my backup plan. So think about what is your backup plan if your internet is shaky that day, just in case, right? So I had a client who there was some sort of issue in her building and her internet was not reliable. And so she just sent a note to the school where she was interviewing. And she said, here's my direct line, just in case I fall off, right? And interviewers are really understanding about that sort of thing, right? We're all kind of going through this together. And so it was not a problem. She was actually admitted to that school, which was great. So yeah, as far as preparation, think about what you're going to wear. Some of the schools I've seen this year are actually in their interview invites specifying what type of dress code. So one of the schools recently said it's business casual, which is nice. When in doubt, I think always err on the side of a little more formal. But if they tell you, I mean, that's great. Check your lighting. Make sure that the sun isn't kind of behind you and washing you out. Make sure your face is clear. Make sure there's nothing messy in the background, right? So similar to the way you'd prepare for a real in-person interview, which is make sure that you are presentable and also make sure that your surroundings are presentable as well.
Great tips. Okay, so let's say you have gone through all of the steps of the MIT application, you finished the interview. How is the virtual interview evaluated as part of the overall application for MIT? Can you share some insight into that?
Yeah. So like most schools, I mean, one hiccup in the interview isn't going to completely wipe out the rest of your application, right? So they're looking at all of the components of your application and then making a final decision, right? So it's certainly important, right? You're interviewing usually with a member of the admissions committee, and that certainly matters. But this won't make or break you if you stumble over a few words, or you're not 100% in love with one of the answers you gave. Oftentimes it's still okay.
Great. Any last tips that you can give us about MIT? Yeah.
Sure. So I think behavioral questions are quite unique. I think they're very interesting. I usually tell my clients, prepare a handful of stories that can be used interchangeably, right? So they're going to ask you things like maybe a time you resolved a team conflict, right? Or a time you mentored someone else, right? Or even much more specific questions. I remember from my own interview, I would tell a story and then they would ask for more detail, right? And so I like for my clients to think about what those stories might be, but have maybe 5 to 10 stories in your back pocket so that you're not caught off guard, right? You want to be prepared with some stories. You want to say a little bit of context, and then what were your actions and what was the outcome that you generated, right? And then in the interview, you can kind of pull from that library, right? And share the stories that make sense for those questions.
Yeah, that's very good advice. And I think a lot of it is learning how to go through those stories in a very concise manner. Yeah.
Absolutely agree.
Thank you, Karen. This was extremely helpful.
Of course.
Have a great day.
You
We'll talk
too.
to you another time.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Bye-bye.